So you've decided to pick up a MacBook Pro because you need a little bit more power than you'd get in a MacBook Air, and that's great. So I have in front of me here two different MacBook Pros. The years aren't super important here. This is a 2021 MacBook Pro M1. This is a MacBook Pro M2. I mean, the specs are a little different. This is a Pro, this is a Max, but that's not important here. I think a lot of people are more confused over which model to get, not necessarily in terms of the power, because you can spec both of these out to be quite powerful, to be honest. I think size and performance and more form factor is the biggest deciding factor for a lot of people. So the MacBook Pro 14, I don't have a 13 in front of me. My partner has a 13 Air. 13 Pro is going to be, I mean, at that point, you're probably better off just getting an Air because it's going to be a little bit cheaper. You're not getting the, the active cooling in that on a 13 Pro. So, I mean, I think most people, if you're going to be getting a Pro, you should be buying in at the 14 or 16. That's what you're spending for. Otherwise, just get an Air. That's my first take there. But I might be wrong, but that's my take on the 13 Pro. The 14 Pro is kind of a perfect size, I think, for mobility, kind of a mixed size for a lot of people. Again, my partner has a 13 Air. It's hyper portable. The screen is a little small. If you want to get some major productivity done, because you want to have, two panels set up at the same time, it can be a little bit slow. So, if you're on your Pro here, and then you have a web page over here on the right side, we'll just zoom in a little bit on this one here. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not bad in terms of the width of the laptop. You can have a document here on the left that you're working on. You can have a document here on the right. It's a little narrow. That's the only thing. So people who haven't used MacBooks before may not realize that the MacBook has a little bit more height than most Windows machines. Windows machines are typically 16 by 9, which are very wide, or 16 by 10, which have a little bit more height. This has even more height here. So if you actually take out, the notch area there, which has the menu bar there, you lose a little bit more width in terms of height. So it's great for viewing single content. In my opinion, I love this aspect ratio, but you do lose a little bit of width there. With a 13-inch, I mean, both of your panels are getting pretty small left and right. On a 14-inch, I mean, you can still have a full document here on the right. You can still have a full document here on the left. This is a document. There's enough room on the left side that you could have like a full Word-sized document or whatever program you use and still have, enough size on the right that you can have a website, probably with a document. So then the Pro over here, I mean, it looks like it's the same because, I mean, it's on camera. It's a little hard to describe in person, but it's huge. I mean, the screen is very large. So I have my document over here that I'm working on. I don't have to have it super narrow. I can actually make this one slightly bigger if need be, if I want to have a little bit more width, especially if I'm working on like a Word document. If you're a student or you're a professional, you may want to have some comments on the side there. And if you have a Word document open and you have comments or edits on the right side, they're going to be probably cut off if you have 2 pages here. So I found that was kind of annoying on the 14, where I'd have to basically always reposition this window over here because it was taking up my extra space here. And so, with these, you can make them a little bit bigger and you can still have, on the right side here, you can still have a full size, basically document over here. So these have about the same scaling right now. If you look at the actual text sizes, they're about the same. So there's more information on the 16 than there is on the 14. Like I said, you can scale this down so everything becomes a little bit smaller. Then of course you can fit more stuff, but then you're dealing with legibility, right? So you're going to get to the point where the documents are so small that they might become kind of illegible. So you can see here, it's at default right now. You can go in here and go basically, more space like that. Now you have more space. So now, I mean, you can make your document significantly larger. So it's not the end of the world. If you have a 14-inch and you think that, okay, I don't really have enough screen space. Well, I mean, now your websites and your screens are basically smaller. So you have more room to work with like this, and you're like, it's a little narrow for me. I wish I had a little bit more width. I don't have enough working space. Well, go more space. And with the 16-inch over here, you don't necessarily have to scale. So you can see there with the default, I'm getting, if you do a comparison there, you can see that's about an inch right there. We're just going to use real word measurements. So for me, that's a little over an inch, maybe an inch and a half. That's about an inch and a half, but you can see the scaling is different. That's on more space. This is on default. So we're getting the same amount of space now, I guess I'd call it, on screen for each element, but everything is scaled down here. So it's a little bit harder to see, a little bit smaller. So, it's just a little bit harder to read, probably by about 20 or 30%. If I do that over here, well, massive amounts of space. So, I mean, that argument then all of a sudden, if you're like, well, I can read this, it's fine. Well, on the 16-inch, you go with more space and you just have almost like a desktop computer. You go into the Apple store. That's what a lot of people do. They'll walk into the Apple store and test them out. And then you look at them and you say, like, it's not the form factor that bothers me, it's the actual screen real estate. Well, you can play with scaling a little bit here, right? Like you can make it bigger if you want it to be much more legible, smaller, and even smaller. So it does kind of overcome that a little bit there. And you know, when I'm doing video editing on my 16-inch here, there's a ton of space here, right? So I can have my preview up here, my timeline, you know, I can have, what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 6 tracks open, you know, 6 tracks fit fully. I could add more if need be. A big preview panel over here, all my clips there. So tons and tons and tons of space. And that's on scaling there. Even when I go to like default there, you know, I upscale it slightly, it's fine. Like you can see here, I still have tons of space, right? So obviously there's a huge benefit to going with the 16-inch because there's just more space. You can see the screen size there is pretty noticeable. I mean, this is sitting on top and we still don't have the same height, inches over there. So you get a lot more screen real estate, obviously, on the 16, right? I mean, it's obvious, it's 2 inches larger. But that's not the only thing here. So we'll look at the actual screens here. There's a little bit more bezel on the 16-inch. Let me actually close this out because it's hard to see on camera. But you can see there where the bezel is. It's slightly larger than the bezel on this one. So we'll move that off there. And you can see the color. Slightly smaller bezel. It's actually half the size on the 14-inch. So if you add that up all the way around, you're not losing as much screen real estate as you think. You're still obviously getting much more screen on here. But you can see there, look at that. I didn't know I could do that. I just learned something today, really cool. Look at that. So this is I'm using this computer and I can come right over there. Isn't that cool? And I'm not even connected to one another. I guess they're just in the room with one another. So, I mean, maybe that's your solution there. You get 2 MacBooks and then you do double hand, right? You're doing work on both at the same time and then you cross over like that, right? Look at all that extra space there. So what they do is they bury the menu bar and all your documents up there. Whereas here, it actually takes up screen, right? So I come up here, this is actual screen being lost. Again, not a big deal, but it does inch right there. That's quite a bit more, I don't know, chin or whatever coming towards you. It's not insignificant. It is not insignificant. Typing, 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 typing. Come over here, same range. Well, I mean, obviously it's a bigger screen, but if it's on your lap, I mean, this one maybe has to sit back that far because, you know, my waist is right here, whereas this one can come right up to my waist. And so now you can see the screen is closer, right? These are not insignificant things. These are things that people, it may seem dumb, but I'm trying to cover this in depth. Some people may not care about these parts, but I mean, laptops are meant to be used. So I was using this for a few weeks and, you know, when I'm typing, I don't know, it's just very natural to type on the 14. And I don't know what it is about the 16. It's too big or something. So I actually, you know, when I come to type on the 16, I swoop in kind of, like I'm not like this because this thing is huge, right? It's usually on my lap, so it's really close to me. Maybe I'd get used to it, but I do find that maybe because it's slightly bigger and, you know, there's a huge runway to get up to it as well. You know, like my arms are like, half of my arms are on the thing before I start typing, right? So let's look at the form factor here. So it is a much bigger laptop, much bigger laptop. You may think 14 inches to 13 inches. When you go from 13 inches to 14, it's not hugely larger. It's a little bit bigger, you know, the 13-inch MacBook Pro and the 13-inch Air. Obviously the Air is thinner, but it's not hugely different. Like you could hand someone a 14 or a 16. You can hand someone a 14 or a 13. It's not gonna be a big difference. My partner uses a 13. She was using my 14 a little bit and it doesn't make a difference. However, 16 is huge. Like it's a big laptop. I use gaming laptops, I review gaming laptops. 16-inch is gaming laptop category. This is a 16-inch laptop. Then you pick up the 14 and you're like, okay, this is like actually light. Compared to an Air, obviously it's heavier, but this is like one-handable, right? Like I could walk around with this. I can go for meetings. I can walk with it. You know, it's a super portable laptop. So 14-inch is super portable. 16 is not a big deal. I mean, it's a little hefty for that kind of stuff, but it's a big laptop. However, it's a big, sleek laptop. So it's hard to compare. If you're like me and you came from Windows and you're using gaming laptops, you know, 16-inch on a gaming laptop, you're starting to get a little bit big, right? Even if you get slim 16-inch laptops, they're starting to get a little bit big. Typically, you're going to have some ventilation on the top there. I don't know, some design nonsense that they put on Windows gaming laptops to make them gamery. Whereas this here is super sleek, right? So both of these are portable. You know, you can pick them up, put them in your bag, take them from place to place, and then get your work done for the day. I would say, you know, this is more of a pick up, take to your location, sit down, do work. That's what this is for. It's a mobile workstation. So it's a big computer. You don't have a desktop, but you want to take a desktop with you. You pick up your 16-inch MacBook Pro, you move to your destination, you sit down, and then you get your work done for the day, right? And you're probably not moving around tons throughout the day, because if you are moving around tons throughout the day, you're probably going to go with the 14-inch here. It's just, I don't know, it's just super compelling in terms of size. It really depends on the person, right? If in a perfect world, I would have both, and I would keep both of these, and I would be able to move around with this and set this up almost as a permanent solution. And then if I'm just popping out for the day and, I need to go do some work real quick, but I want to have my laptop with me, I would use the 14-inch. If you have a larger workspace, you may actually be fine. You may actually benefit from getting the smaller MacBook because obviously you can move around with it. It's super portable. And then, maybe that's a little bit not enough room for you, but it's very easy to get external monitor. They don't cost a lot of money, let's be realistic. The money that you're going to save probably from getting the smaller MacBook is going to easily cover your cost there. And then if you have a lot of room, then you have two probably similar size screens, 14-inch screen, 14-inch screen. So, I can be set up like this and I can have my MacBook here and then I can have my second screen here. So if you have a lot of room, in some ways there's actually some benefits to getting the 14-inch. The 16-inch might be a little bit too much when you have 16 inches and an external monitor, but if you have a 14-inch and an external monitor, you're pretty much good to go. This is a really nice setup here if you have the room. It really depends on where you're working, what type of workspace you have. So oddly, if you have a slightly bigger workspace, maybe a larger desk or something like that, you're not in a dormitory or something, it's actually kind of nice to get the 14-inch, take it, go do your work for the day, and then when you come home, you can have a portable external monitor or a dedicated external monitor set up, right? When you have the 16-inch, I think it's big enough that you don't necessarily need the external monitor because, you just sit down, you set yourself up, and then you have your full device right in front of you. You could still, of course, hook up an external monitor here, and then you're getting into some serious productivity, like almost desktop level screen real estate here. But I think for a lot of people, to be honest, if you have a limited space, if you have a small dormitory room where, maybe you're sharing your room with someone else and you only have this kind of small area, right? Like I'm emulating here having a larger desk. Let's say our desk is half this size, right? Let's say this is, a standard little desk that you get in a dormitory. How am I gonna, right? Like get this in there. It's just too much, right? So then at that point, you just get the 16-inch because you actually take up your full desk and you don't need the second monitor because you have so much screen real estate. So it seems kind of counterintuitive. If you have a small desk, and you don't have room for a second monitor, I can see the appeal of a 16-inch because it's all in one, right? This is a full, large workspace, large computer, very powerful. And, you're going to take this with you, still portable enough, take it with you to work. And then when you sit down at your smaller desk, whatever your narrow area is, even in like a coffee shop or something, you have a full screen right in front of you, right? You're not going to walk into a coffee shop, at least I don't think you're going to walk into a coffee shop with a table that's probably about this big here and, set up your monitor, your laptop, and then bring out your monitor here. And, your table's probably actually smaller than this. It's probably, probably more like that if you're in a Starbucks or something like that. And then your monitor is kind of dangling off the side there. And you're trying to no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. Like, let's be realistic. You're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to come in here and compensate, and you're going to compromise with the smaller MacBook, whereas you could have just came in with the big boy and had a full gigantic screen right in front of you. These are not easy questions, right? It really depends on your workflow, what your work environment is like. It's easy for people to go online, especially like content creators on YouTube, like myself, and to just say, oh, get this because of this, get this because of this. But that's one niche. They're probably looking at this from the lens of a content creator, like a video editor, and that's it. But there are more than those. There's more than that one single career out there, and the vast majority of MacBook users are not video makers, content creators. So I think for the average person, you really need to weigh the pros and cons of these two different devices properly and not just take into account, like one video editor's input on this device as being perfect because they are a video editor and their video is tailored towards video editors. Probably the most well-rounded candidate is the 14-inch here. It doesn't have any major compromises. It has some inconveniences, but overall it does an extremely good job at doing what it's supposed to do, being a MacBook and being amazing. And there's no major compromises or deal breakers where you're like, oh my God, that's a deal breaker for me. It's too big, or it's too small, or it's too heavy, or the screens are, a little bit too narrow, or whatever the case is. There's no major deal breakers with the 14. If it works for you, it works for you. But there are deal breakers for some people. It's much heavier. It is much heavier. So when you're carrying this around, it's a heavier laptop. Still not getting into 17-inch gaming territory, but it's a heavy laptop. Let's be realistic, and it's a big laptop. So when you're moving from environment to environment, moving around throughout the day, if you bike somewhere a lot, you're getting to the point where the laptop is getting big. So there could be deal breakers for some people. If you sit on your couch and you lie down a lot on your couch, and you're going to be typing up documents on your couch while you're lying down, it's a big big laptop to have on your lap reclining like that, right? So at that point, I mean, maybe the 14 inch is better the way to go, because when you're lying down, it's super comfortable to like kind of prop up on your lap. The 16 inch, you know, if you're sitting vertically, like cross-legged or something like that, or in a chair, setting this on your lap, it's not that bad. You know, it's totally fine. Getting on a plane though, or a train with a 16 inch, it's going to be big. It has a lot of height this way. It's going to be right up against you, and you're going to have this big, gigantic laptop in front of you, whereas the 14 inch isn't going to have those same problems. It's going to be more portable. If you're going and setting up at a desk though, you know, you go sit down at a desk, you get your 14 inch monitor, you get your 14 inch MacBook, you sit down at your desk, you know, maybe there's nothing else on the desk, you don't have a second monitor, and you have, I mean, a fairly small laptop to do all your work, right? Like you're going to be probably leaning in, you know, you're going to be set up. There's not a ton of screen real estate there. Whereas, you know, if the 16 inch, you sit down at a desk, you open it up and you're pretty much good to go. I mean, not as portable, but you're going to have a lot more screen real estate there right in front of you, just a bigger laptop overall. It's going to draw you in a little bit more as well. So now we're going to say who's going to buy these here. For students, say you're a high school student. I mean, do you really need a MacBook? Put it that way. You're probably just going to buy an Air. Let's say you're a university student and you're in a field that you actually need the power here. So you're in some type of graphic design, architecture, engineering, earth science, you know, computer science, where you actually are going to benefit from the power that a Pro presents. The 14 inch is probably the way to go for most people, because moving from class to class, like I went to university in the era when laptops were not so thin, and it is a burden to take a big laptop from class to class if you're moving around, right? When you get back to your dormitory or back to your home or wherever you work, you can always use an external monitor, right? Set up an external monitor on the side, even if it's USB-C, or you can have a big one. You can have a portable monitor you can take with you, set it on the side. They're super sleek. Or you can have a big full-size monitor. You know, you get home and you need more space, you have a second monitor on the side. That's the nice thing about it. But when you need to be portable, the 14 inch is what you're going to move around with and get work done wherever you need to go. But you need the power of the M1 chip, basically. So you're not going to go with an Air. So you're okay with, you know, a little bit more weight, and but then you get the power of the then you get the power of the, you know, the Pro chips over just the base models. But the 14 inch is super compelling. So I think for 95% of MacBook buyers who need the Pro, who don't need the base, the 14 is the way to go. Because at home, the 16 inch, you're probably just going to hook up a monitor. It's not a big deal, right? You're just going to go like that. Now, there's the 16 inch people who, there's two real ways to go, I'd say, with this. 16 inch is for people who don't want to have a second monitor set up, right? They don't want that, or they don't have the space. All of their space in one computer. So you sit down here, you have your 16 inch MacBook. You are not sacrificing any power or processing abilities here. You have a huge workstation in front of you, but you can move around. So, you know, if you have limited space, you don't have a big desk where you can have multiple monitors set up. So I think for people who don't have a lot of space and want one single computer set up at one area and they don't have room for an external computer, I'd say probably the 16 actually, because, you know, you don't need an external monitor with the 16 because you can easily get multiple panel work done at the same time. Portability, the 14 is a little bit niche because it's in the middle of this and the Air. If portability is king to you, or queen, go for the Air because it's more portable. You could even get the 15-inch Air, right? It's super portable. If you need a balance of power and portability, then you're going to get into the 14-inch. If you care about getting stuff done, not just, you know, video editing. Macs are always pushed on people who only do video editing, but I would say the average Mac user is not a video editor or a music creator. The average Mac user is probably a student or a professional, but most likely probably a student, right? Like a university or high school student. I'd say most university students use MacBooks. Even in fields like mine that are computer related, you'd be surprised how many people use MacBooks. So I'd say the average MacBook user is not a YouTuber. It's not someone like me making YouTube videos. It's not someone, you know, making music in their garage. That's not the average. The average person is just a student or a professional, right? Who just wants a stable computer that works. That's what you're going to decide on. Don't get bogged down in the specs of the content creators who say, you know, all this and that because, you know, I do video editing. It doesn't matter to you. Most likely it doesn't matter if you're watching this video. Decide on the size of the laptop. Is the screen going to be big enough for you on the 14-inch, or is it going to be too small? Then you go with the 16-inch. Is the giant chin of the 16-inch too big and it's too unwieldy to move around with? Then you go back to the 14. So I think for the average person watching my video right now, the average person, I think probably go with the 14-inch because it's right in the middle. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit less real estate when you go side to side, but again, you can scale it up a little bit too. If you're watching this video though, and you really do love big screens, getting a lot of work done, you don't want to compromise at any time, then you're getting into the 16-inch.